everyone, to the Buttercup podcast where we talk about early childhood topics. My name is Marisa Macy, and I'm the host of the Buttercup podcast. I'm so excited today because I have Denise Luscombe here today from Australia, and she is a pediatric physiotherapist who works as early childhood intervention consultant and director of Postural Care Australia. She is chair of professionals and researchers in early childhood intervention, also called PRACE. Denise has worked in the field of pediatrics, disability, and ECI for over 35 years. In the early 2000s, Denise led a project changing the WA State Government Disability Services Commission ECI model to a key worker, team around the child model. Denise was a consultant on the Commission's statewide consultancy team supporting the implementation of recommended practices in ECI and pediatric physiotherapy throughout Western Australia, including remote and very remote regions. And I'm so excited to talk to you about that part, especially remote regions and very remote regions. Denise is a founding member and current chair of PRACE and the PRACE project lead for the development of the National Best Practice Framework in Early Childhood Intervention in Australia. The framework is cross-sector, cross-discipline, cross-diagnosis, and cross-service delivery model. Thank you so much for being here today, Denise.
Yeah, thanks, Marisa. Thank you for having me.
So, how did you get started in this work?
Yeah, look, it was great to think about that. I know that I always wanted to work with children, and and I was very interested in physio. But it was interesting doing the undergraduate course because unlike early childhood education, where you're working with children all the way through, I actually did 4 years of study with very little input on children. So I actually went back and did a postgrad and in fact a master's as well in pediatric physio to really get the knowledge that I needed to work in the field. So yeah, it's been something I've always wanted to do. I started working with children with disability back in the late 80s, and it again at that time it was not a sexy place for physios to work. You know, physios were more likely to work in sports physio or working, you know, with people who've got bad backs, etc. So that's changed though. I think as early childhood intervention has become more well known, and I think also because of the changes that we have in our system here, it's become much more of an area that people are interested to get into. But as your students will know, it's also a quite complex area, and you know we all need to work together to make it successful. So that's yeah, that's how I got involved. Really, always had an interest in working with children.
Thank you. And you do a lot with family-centered practices and approaches. Do you want to talk a little bit about the families?
Yeah, so look, I think I've learned so much from families over the time. And when I first started in early childhood intervention or working in the state government here, it was really, again, as I said, back in the 80s, where the model was much more multidisciplinary. And, you know, they had a team, but, you know, I was responsible for going in, assessing the child, yeah, I would set the goals. You know, when I look back, I think, wow, the changes that we've had, I would set the goals. I would determine the program that the child would do, and then really have an expectation that the family would do it. And I'd go back next time and see how it had gone. And so it's really lovely, even though I loved working with the families and I think I had a good relationship with the family. That's certainly changed over time as we learnt more about what family-centered practice means. And so that changed to really understanding the importance of the relationship building, the engagement, their involvement in setting their child's goals and the fact that they can do that. And even the development of strategies with them and those that are going to fit within their everyday life were just such key changes. But I guess importantly was that whole change from me just telling them what to do to actually working with them and having that outcome or aim of building family capability so that you were no longer seen just as this expert sort of going into the family, but they were seen as an inherent part of the team and that we all brought our knowledge together and they had that key knowledge about their child and their family that really ensured that what we did together was successful. And I think I'd just like to say too, I was really lucky in that our state government had always provided home-based services. So even though I was providing a service into the home, I think that's also the difference of providing almost like a clinic in the home. It was at the beginning, but certainly as we learned more about family-centered practice, and that started here really in the mid-90s, then it became much more of us going in and just joining in with the family and their everyday routines and activities. Yeah.
That is awesome. Thank you. Well, I have a little one, and one of her favorite shows is Bluey. And Bluey is from Australia, and it's a family of blue healers, a
Yep.
mom, and dad, and two little girls. Bluey is a girl, and her sister Bingo. And we just love watching that show at home. And I think there's lots of little kids around United States now that probably have Australian accents because they watch Bluey at home so much.
Oh,
It's
that'll be nice. A bit of a reversal because
a
often it's,
bit, a bit
yeah.
of a, well, I remember when before Bluey, my daughter loved watching Peppa Pig. And I
Oh, yeah.
think Peppa's from the UK. And so that's a different accent than
Yeah.
Australian
Yeah.
accent. And so now it's just so neat to see those uh, examples from Australia. And yeah, when I
Yeah.
told her I was going to be talking to you, she was like, "Oh, that's so cool."
And it's interesting that you mentioned Bluey because for the early childhood educators, they have actually developed the series around the early years learning framework, which is the framework for early childhood educators. So they can actually use Bluey episodes at at the early childhood education and care centre, and it covers parts of the curriculum for them. But yeah, so that I'm not sure if you knew that.
Well, I talked to someone. Uh, I can't remember all the details that she was telling me, but we have public broadcasting, PBS here, and there's PBS Kids and different things you can use early childhood media for in early childhood care and education settings. And so that's so cool about Bluey and Australia. Is it public? Can you go to like a website and find it?
Oh,
The
Bluey's just on our
resources?
local, yeah, it's just on our free TV. So they can find the episodes on there. Yeah,
That's awesome.
free to air. Yeah.
Well, Australia is a huge country, and I have a lot of people in my classes and people who listen to the podcast who live and work with children and families in rural or remote areas. In fact, we're kind of considered where I live frontier. There's about 6 people per mile. It's very remote in many areas. Do you have some ideas or advice for serving families and children in remote areas? Because you have two categories. You have the remote and very remote
Mm,
regions.
yeah, yeah, we do Western Australia, which is the state that I'm in. Um, and the Northern Territory, which is another state up, but in the middle of Australia, probably have some of the remotest areas where where people live. And look, it is a hugely tricky area because Most of our children, most of our population, as it is most countries, is around the cities in the metropolitan area. But Perth is in WA is very low in the state, and so it takes you fly to get to the top of the state, and it's many hours. So you can travel by plane to somewhere like Broome. People may have know where Broome is, but then you can travel 6 hours by car out to a remote community where there may not be a lot of accommodation, and then children are even a couple more hours drive out from there. So it is extremely remote. So the services that children can receive, and it may be that the children are living in a remote Aboriginal community. It may be that children are living in on a very large property, because of, their family are into, farming, etc. So, it varies why people are living in such remote situations. So it has always been a challenge, and I don't know that we've yet got the answers to it. I think I would say that what we've learned is that we have to work with the local community and what the resourcing is that they have. But we have what are called FIFO people, so fly in, fly out. So fly in, fly out workers who will fly in, work with the children and their families, or stay there for a few days, and then they will fly back out. And there's pros and cons to that. Um, you know, Families get a service, but the services aren't there in between, and so therefore, they may not be able to access them when they need them. Often they're complemented with telepractice. So if people have got access to good internet, then there's a lot done by telepractice as well, and that's become more popular since COVID. And I think we've got a lot more capability around that as well. Um, we have drive in, drive out. So we've got FIFO and we've got Dido. So drive in, drive out. So people drive in and drive out of the communities or the areas. Most of our state, being quite remote, is covered by our health services. So they will support as well those who are coming in to support children with disability, or they may do some of the work themselves. But each of the states, I think, here and the territories has various reasons why people feel, that they are living more remote because they're living away from the main bulk of where services are provided. So I think there's a lot of innovation going in with the way that services are provided. As I've said, fly in, fly out, drive in, drive out. But there is still a reduced capacity there for the serving, just because of the distance. So we're still working out how this needs to be done better. When you're looking at early childhood education and care, most areas would have early childhood education and care centres for children, not always out in the very remote areas or in the communities, but many will. I think one of their main challenges is getting staff, recruiting staff, and then maintaining staff. I know that there is a lot of staff turnover in that area. So many locals who've grown up in the area will go back once they've got their degrees, but there is still a lot of turnover. So I don't know if I've actually been very helpful at all there, Marisa, because I think it is something that we still grapple with, to get an equity of service. Where the vision of Précy itself is excellence and equity in services for children. And so, having high quality is one thing, but being able to get it equitable across such a large country is really challenging.
Yes. Uh, Well, I'm so excited to come to your session at the ISEI conference. One of the things that you'll be talking about, I have the title here, The Impact of Working in Partnership with Families to Build Understanding and Implementation of Supported Lying. So, at the International Society for Early Intervention and Yearly Aid Joint Conference this fall, you're one of the keynote speakers, and I'm so excited for your workshop. Do you want to give us just a little preview of what you're going to be sharing at the conference?
Yeah, and look, I guess this is a different area. It's still working in early childhood intervention. It's working with children who have quite significant physical disabilities, and it's in the area of supported lying, which is basically whenever a child is lying, whether it's during the day, but obviously overnight when they're unable to change their position. So we're looking at children with quite significant, physical disabilities. And what I'm doing is really trying to demonstrate the need, as we talked previously, about building family capability, about understanding the needs of their child overnight. And we're getting more and more research about the impact of children lying in poor postures overnight, and this leading to a lot of body shape changes. So been lucky enough to work with lots of families and lots of children, and I'll be presenting case studies that really highlight that if you can teach families about what they need to do and why they need to do it, so they really get the understanding of the why. That's the really important thing. They will often modify the how to suit their child, and I'm going to show some real sort of innovative outcomes that families have come up with in supporting their children at night, because certainly we're not there to do this. So it's really important that the families understand it. So really it's about bringing together early childhood intervention best practice principles with, in my case, discipline specific evidence, and how we can bring them together to support the outcomes for the child.
Yes, that sounds really exciting, uh, uh, and having the family be at the center, and transdisciplinary approaches where we're all working together on the same team. And like you said, uh, empowering the parents and family members that are with the infants and toddlers and young children uh, is such a powerful approach. So thank you so much for sharing that. I can't wait
Different.
to see you and come hear your session. Well, what is something or someone who inspires you?
Yeah, look, this was really interesting because I was trying to think, is there absolutely one person? I don't know if there is for you, Marisa, but um, I there are so many people that I find quite inspirational. So I sort of wasn't going to name anybody, but I think it's the qualities of the people that I really appreciate. And, professionally, it's those that, amaze me by coming up with new ideas. How do people do that and just come up with something that hasn't been thought about before? I love that. I also love people who are really willing to reflect and to have open and honest discussions with me, so that we can explore and unpack things, and it pushes me to think outside of the box, and they're willing to accept maybe somebody's different opinion, and you can sort of go back and forth with each other until you either agree to disagree, or you both have changed what your thinking is. And to be honest, this can be a new graduate who is really curious and giving their perspective, and having that really rich conversation, or it can be somebody who is really really experienced but still willing to acknowledge that we all continue to learn all the time. So I think they're the qualities of the people that I just really love talking to, listening to, and learning from. And I think if you can surround yourself with people like that, which I think I'm going to give a plug for the people on Pracy, we have some great, robust conversations that we know it's a safe space to have those conversations. So I think, finding your community, finding those people who will support you in the area that you get into, I think is just really just so important, and it keeps you inspired and it keeps you growing yourself.
Yes, keeps you inspired and keeps you growing, all the amazing team members around us. Well, and you do so many innovative things with Pracy. You do professional development for people, and one of the things that you've been doing is webinars, and then you have your research to practice, where you take a study or journal article, and then you make it practical and show how it can be used. What are things that are innovations today that excite you?
Oh, again, I think in the context that we're in at the moment, as you mentioned at the beginning, we are involved in developing the next best practice framework for early childhood intervention. And what is really exciting for me at the moment is how we see that be put into practice. And I know, again, probably for your students, the concepts and the principles are ones that are familiar, but we have had a change in our context here in Australia. And interestingly, it inadvertently pushed us back in practice to a time where more therapy was seen as important, where clinics, a lot of work is done in the clinics. So the development of the best practice framework and really coming back and sharing what the principles are of good quality early childhood intervention, things like being rights-based, strengths-based, relationship-based. You've already talked and we've touched on being family-centered, child-centered, such an important area for early childhood education, for the child to have a voice and to have that agency. Um, things like the teamwork and going back and understanding why we need to work and understand children's everyday routines and activities. To me, that is a really exciting time here in Australia. So we've looked at we've got the framework developed. The next step is actually supporting the sector to implement it. And early childhood educators here in Australia work very differently in different states. And I think what we will see is then, much more collaboration and the innovation, I think, that will come between the two sectors working more closely together, with the early childhood intervention, staff working with the early childhood early childhood educators who really know the children, they're with them so much. And, we will see some innovation and the outcomes that we should expect from children being involved in high quality early childhood education settings and receiving high quality early childhood intervention. So it may not sound innovative to you, but when you see how quickly things can change, we are getting back to where we were, and hopefully we will keep progressing. And through that, there will be innovation that will come out, and maybe we will solve the answer to working with children in those remote and very remote areas through this process of implementing the framework.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Denise. Um, well, if you had to pick a highlight, what is something that has been a memorable experience that you've had in your career so far?
Yeah, look, I've been lucky enough to have a few. I again I've been, really lucky to have changed the model, as you mentioned, in our state government, and work with a great team of people to do that, work with the families as well. Was involved in the first national best practice guidelines and now the framework, that we've just finished. So those have been, really highlights for me because I think they've made a broader difference to the field. However, I was also thinking those things that I got so much joy from and so much reward was, when a child first walked to their mother or the mother told me that, that they had done that. And sometimes it was really simple things that had been worked on and, you had to overcome barriers and together you did that and it was something that was achieved. But it's the family or the early childhood educator that has been able to achieve that for the child and just that working together. So, there was the broader things, but I think that real buzz also comes from when you're just working with individual families and what you learn from them and when you see things actually happen that are so important to them. But look, the other thing I'd like to say, and hopefully the students will also go on to do this, but it's the ability in the field that they're in to be able to travel and to meet other people and, know that the network doesn't have to be just local, that you are part of an international community. And I think, again, I've loved the people that I've met. And, you talked about the webinars, Marisa, and obviously you did one for us that was really popular. So that sharing of information as well with colleagues around the world, I think is something I get a real buzz out of as well.
Yes, yes, and it's so much fun. The last time you and I saw each other was in Chicago, and we met for brekkie. And it's breakfast time there now in Australia, and you were so kind to get up early this morning during brekkie and do this with me. And you're right, it's so wonderful when we can collaborate. Uh, in our community, and we don't have to be bound by borders. That
Yeah, that's
just
right.
because you're in Australia and I'm in America doesn't mean we can't collaborate and do things together. And the world has become so much smaller of a place because of technology and all these
Yeah.
wonderful ways we can collaborate. And it was such an honor to be on your webinar and get to meet some of your team at Pracy, and also some of the people that had all those great questions. And it's just so neat what you are all doing in Australia. And yeah, that was awesome. Well, and I can't wait to see you at the international conference. And um, uh, so yeah, I'm so excited. Well, how could
Will be good.
was there anything else you wanted to share, Denise?
Look, one of the things I thought might be useful for the early, for your students is to look up the early years learning framework that is in Australia. That has the concepts around being, belonging, and becoming as the three sort of key words for children who are involved in the early childhood education care setting, and that's the framework for that area. So there's lots of great resources around it that they may find useful, and the new national best practice framework actually interfaces with that and really talks about how the two sectors can work closely together for the outcomes for children. So I'd certainly encourage them to look that up and also go to the Pracy website. As you said, we've got research snapshots there that are relevant for both fields. We've got all of the webinars that have been available as well. They're all there. So, yeah, they can access anything. It's all for free. And we'd be really keen to know that they have been able to do that. So.
That is awesome. Thank you, Denise. Well, in addition to the Pracy website and the resources there, are there any other ways that the listener can follow you?
Yeah, for sure. We've also got a newsletter So if they go to the website, you get that box that comes up after about 10 seconds. So, if they sign into the newsletter, that will get them again information about what we're involved in, what new articles we think might be relevant for people to read who work with children with disabilities. And it's under the age of 9 here in Australia. We also do have a YouTube channel. We have Facebook, LinkedIn, and we're just starting a podcast channel as well. So this is wonderful, yeah, to have your experience here. So yeah, all of those things we have available, and we hope that they do uh, see, or find something that will be useful for them on any of those channels. But we'd love them to connect.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Denise. Thanks for being here this morning and, well, morning your time, nighttime my time. And it's just such a delight to talk to you, and I can't wait to see you in the fall.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Marisa. Can't wait to see you in Portugal.
Thank you,
See
Denise.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.